Hi Merritt, this is Julianne Victoria, and this is the astrology reading that John and Lena got for you for your birthday. Happy birthday, or little belated birthday here. First of all, they asked if I do your life path number or the tarot card that correlates to that. So that is what you see here. We have the Magician card. So your life path number, which is your birth date, all the numbers of your birth date broken down, and it comes down to the number 1. And the number 1 correlates to, you can see the first, well, it's not the first, it's actually the second because there's a 0 card, but the number 1 card of the major arcana of the tarot. And that is the Magician. So that means as your life path, you carry a lot of magician energy with you. The magician card represents new beginnings. It's about creating the new. And I don't know how familiar you are with tarot, but the magician has the cup, the pentacle, the swords, and the wands. He has all the tools of the tarot. He also, as you can see, points up towards the heaven and down to the earth. So there's the saying, as above, so below. Seeing the connection between the divine and the mundane realm. So this is part of your, in numerology at least, your life path. So combining numerology and tarot. That you are a creator, you're a manifester, and you're aware of and see the connection of, you could say, the earthly realm and the spirit realm, the heavens and the planet, the connection between the divine and our physical lives. So that is your life path number. I'm not a numerology expert, but there's also your personality numbers and others. But you are a creator and you're a manifester, is what I would say. And you have many skills, and that maybe you have more skills than you realize. And they may not all be practical skills. They can be, in a sense, spiritual skills, innate skills, so innate wisdom and knowledge to create and manifest things in your life. Okay, so that is your life path number. Here we have your Vedic astrology chart. So just a few bits of information before I begin. On the perimeter here, we have the house numbers. So a chart is read counterclockwise. This is your birth chart. So this is your first house, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10, 11, and 12. Now the numbers inside the houses, that is for the number of the sign of the zodiac. So this triangle or diamond shape here is your first house, as you can see, and it is the 4th sign of Cancer, which I'll get further into. A couple other things on the right-hand side here is your D9 or your Navamsha chart. Just ignore where it says spouse. It says, so Vedic astrology has many divisional charts, and the Navamsha or the D9 chart is the most auspicious divisional chart. And the program I use is based on ancient Vedic texts, and everything was from a man's perspective. So the spouse was considered something very auspicious that a man gained in his life. So just ignore spouse there. I tend to ignore the patriarchal cultural influences. But the Navamsha chart is important because it can show alleviation in your chart. So if there's anything challenging in your natal chart, such as a debilitated planet or so, things like that, or combustion, anything like that, you can look at the Navamsha chart to see how the planet is placed there, to see if it's a better placement, and that can bring about alleviation. The Navamsha chart I also look at for maturation of planets, so how the planetary energies can mature through time for you, and that's usually after 40. So you're in your maturation. I would say you're in the extra influence of your Navamsha chart. Now down here, this chart or graph, it's not really either, but I never know what to call it, this list, where it says Vimshatari, these are the dashas. And the dasha periods are periods of time with a main planetary influence, and it's determined by the nakshatra that you're born under from birth, and then it's calculated out from there. Now the first column here is your Maha Dasha, so your great dasha. So it's the strongest influence, and you're in your Saturn Dasha. The second one is called the Antar Dasha, and that's the secondary influence. I usually just look at the first two, but it does extend out a long time. Now you did, let's see, when your Saturn Dasha started not too long ago. Your Saturn Dasha began in 2009, and it's a 19-year-long cycle. So you're deep into your Saturn Dasha. Sorry, that happens. And I will go into that as I go through your chart. But let me just get back up to date here. And you will hear me pause a couple times to take a drink of water, which is necessary in order to talk for 2 hours. I can already tell my throat is dry from doing lots of readings. So if you hear some pauses, that's what I'm doing. And let me just take a drink of water now. Okay. All right, so on to your chart. So this is your first house, this diamond here. The first house represents the self. You can say it's the house of who am I. And in a sense, why am I'm here? Oh, let me just review kind of stuff that John and Lena sent me about you. About wanting to know more about your life purpose and career. You've been a nurse and working in hospice, challenging bosses. You've gone from job to job or company to company. And some health things. You've had a left ankle issue, synovial fluid issue, and possible muscle atrophy because of that ankle. And your husband suffers from chronic depression. So I just want to review that as I begin. So first house again represents you. It's you, Merritt, in this physical lifetime. So your ascendant sign, your AS here, is you in this lifetime. Only this lifetime. So it's this experience, this bodily experience. It's part of the ego identity of Merritt. The ascendant sign, it's who you are. But because it represents the body-mind, it's also a way to look at health. So I just kind of want to jump into that because some of the questions are health. So your ascendant sign is the sign of Cancer. So I would call you a Cancer in Vedic astrology. Some Vedic astrologers identify you by your moon, which is over here in Taurus. But for me, ascendant makes more sense. As a Cancer ascendant, which is ruled by the moon, number one, Cancer is a water sign. The moon represents water. So health-wise, anytime the moon and Cancer are connected to either the first house or the sixth house, which is a house of health, which I'll get to, it is really, really important that you hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. And I will probably repeat that several times during this reading because water is very important for your physical and mental and emotional health. So if you're feeling down, if you're feeling stressed, you may be dehydrated. If you're feeling sluggish and fatigued, drink more water. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. And because of that, it is also very important for you to avoid things that dehydrate you. So like caffeine, alcohol, or anything you know that dehydrates you personally. So water, water, water. That also means that water therapy or hydrotherapy is good for your physical, mental, and emotional health. And I add in mental and emotional health here because the moon rules your first house. So the moon is your ascendant ruler, and the moon represents the emotional mind. So we got body, mind, and emotions all connected here. So being in water is good for your health. Hot baths, hot tubs, the ocean especially, going near bodies of water, even just going to bodies of water to meditate is good for your health. Now concerning your ankles, like synovial fluid. So the moon and Cancer, being your first house, it also encompasses all the waters of your body. And you're a nurse, so you probably know your lymphatic fluids are about 3/4 of your bodily fluids. And then you have your blood, of course. So, though blood is not typically included in moon, that's usually ruled by Mars, but it is a fluid in your body. So concerning synovial fluid, okay, number one, hydration. Hydration and having lots of mobility, keeping the mobility up in the joints is very important for you. Lymphatic drainage therapy can be helpful to get the fluid moving if it's swelling or you're getting edema. That will definitely help to get the waters flowing. I mean, you're a nurse, you probably know this, elevating your ankle, helping it to drain. You can get one of those sleeves. But yeah, getting the fluid moving is important. And again, hydration is going to help. And I do feel like getting in water, doing exercises for your ankle in water, so there's no weight bearing, is going to help quite a bit. I'm just feeling the energy here. And one other thing that's coming up is things like dairy and sugar, things that increase dampness in the body. So that's what I'm getting kind of into acupuncture terms here, but things that increase dampness in the body, like dairy, sugar, anything white basically that you can eat, will create sluggish fluids of the body. So not helping things move, not helping, lymphatic fluid flow through the body, because that's like our sewer system. It needs to flow. If it gets clogged, you get edema, things swell, it's uncomfortable, it causes a lot of pain and makes you feel sick. So yeah, trying to limit or cut down on those dampness. I mean, it's really phlegm increasing, so like thick, goopy, non-fluid fluids in your body, if that makes any sense, may also help as well. So that's coming up to mind. Now it is interesting, so I know I'm already bouncing around. It is interesting that you've had an ankle issue because as you can see over here, you're in your Saturn dasha. And Saturn rules bones, joints, and connective tissue, or sinews, tendons, ligaments, fascia in the body. And an ankle issue, that's definitely very Saturnian. I'm not sure when you got this ankle problem. I'm just thinking about the Saturn transit here. But so you're in your Saturn Mahadasha, which means Saturn's energy in your chart is highlighted. And it's interesting because, there's no connection with Saturn and your 1st and 6th house, so the two places to look at health. However, your natal Saturn is in the sign of Libra where he's exalted. So Saturn is naturally very strong in your chart. Now, this doesn't mean during the entire Saturn dasha that you're going to have bone, joint, and connective tissue problems, but I'm just kind of thinking where this ankle influence came in. Because you did have your Saturn return 2012 through 2014. It ended November 2014. It would have been about 2.5 years prior to that. You did have your Saturn return, and you were in your Saturn dasha, which is interesting. So I don't know when the ankle thing started. If it was 2012, 2013, 2014, when you had your Saturn return in your Saturn dasha with your exalted Saturn. So you definitely have an impact from Saturn. Interesting. There's no connection to health there, so it's not that, things can't happen if there's not a transit, but I was just feeling it out there. Another thing I want to point out, since we're talking about exaltation, so when a planet's exalted, it's at 100% of its strength. So that's what it means, very strong in your chart. So Saturn energies are very powerful for you, and it's made, that's twofold because right now you're in your Saturn dasha. However, you also have the moon in your chart is exalted in Taurus, and again, the moon is your ruler, and I'll go more into that. And yeah, you have Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, and Jupiter's on your ascendant. So let's get back to this. So that's the health stuff with the moon ruling your ascendant. Water stuff, hydration, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Go to water, be in water, mental, emotional, and physical health. Now with the moon, your ruler being exalted, that means your moon is at full strength. And being a Cancer ascendant ruled by the moon, that means you are also a very emotional person. The emotional planet is your ruler. It can also, so one, the moon not only represents water and your emotions or emotional mind, he's your intuition. The moon is also your nurturing qualities. The moon represents mother as well. So you're very motherly, whether or not you've had your own children, but you're in a nursing profession. That is the nurturing motherly energy. That is just who you are. It also makes you very intuitive as well and very empathic. So you can easily, especially because your moon is exalted, you can easily take on the emotions of others. And if you're not aware of that, it can, you can go through, especially like, if your husband has chronic depression or anyone you're around who's suffering emotionally, you will take on their emotions, good or bad. Usually, if it's good, you don't notice it because you feel great, right? But when you take on other people's emotions, it affects you without realizing that it's not yours. So if you're around someone who's pissed off and angry a lot, and you feel angry and you can't figure out why, it's probably because it's not your anger, it's somebody else's. And I'm gonna guess with this exalted moon that you're very, very empathic. You're definitely very nurturing, very motherly, and that's nurse-like. But it is important that if you're not already aware of this, that you learn how to develop the filter. You learn how to screen that out. And one thing something I often recommend to people who are very empathic is to envision a bell-shaped screen over you, like a window screen, where, you can still see through it, so you can feel energy and emotions through it, yet it's not everything can get through. You can filter it out. Or like a bell-shaped thing of cheesecloth or something like that. Just a way to block the negative energies you don't want to feel, but still allow you to perceive emotionally, because that's just natural for you. You can't put a steel wall up and block everything. You would be miserable. You'd feel isolated and completely disconnected from the world. So I always recommend something where you can filter things out. So, but this does mean that people you're closest to, such as your husband, you will feel his depression. You will feel anything anyone close to you is feeling. And so you still have to become aware and ask yourself, if that is who you feeling that? Do you have a reason to feel that? And if not, then it's a good indication you're picking up someone else's emotions. Okay. So also, first house is busy. In your first house, we have Jupiter here, and Jupiter too is exalted. So you have 3 exalted planets in your chart. Nothing is debilitated, which is great. Yes, so no planets are debilitated. But you also have an exalted Jupiter on your ascendant. So you have 2 exalted planets affecting your first house, the ruler, the moon, and Jupiter being there. And as you can see, it's 1 minute away. Jupiter was exactly conjoined your ascendant. So the ascendant sign is the constellation that was rising on the eastern horizon at your moment of birth. So that was Cancer. So the planet Jupiter was like right with Cancer as it was rising on the horizon when you were born. That gives a strong Jupiterian, is that a word? Jupiter influence on your identity, which is really interesting. I don't know if I've seen a planet so exact with the ascendant before. Jupiter represents good luck, auspiciousness, and expansion. Now, I always stress that everything in astrology, as in this physical world, in this realm of duality, has both positive and negative aspects. And we have choice, so we have free will in which to really emphasize. Now, Jupiter in general is considered, a good planet, but he does have his negative side, and the negative side is excess. When Jupiter is exalted, when he's 100% of his strength, yeah, he brings in great luck, great auspiciousness, great expansion, but there is a stronger tendency to excess in some way, into too much. And sometimes when Jupiter's too much, it can feel overwhelming. Okay, so with the exalted moon ruling your ascendant, and you could say the exalted moon, in a sense rules Jupiter here because Jupiter's in the moon's sign of Cancer. There are times in your life where emotionally, and this can be both your emotions, and I want to say another way to say an exalted moon ruling your ascendant is makes you highly sensitive. So you're a highly sensitive person. It can be overwhelmed by your emotions, but more importantly, being overwhelmed by other people's emotions. Like you absorb stuff so much, yet at the same time being so nurturing. You want to care for people, you want to take care of people, you want to help people, it's almost like a little bit of a people pleaser energy. Not in a negative way, but it's like so much, yet at the same time you're so affected that it can just it just overwhelms you emotionally. And I'm going to say that is a part why you may have challenges with boss challenges, as John and Lena wrote, and that you go from company to company, job to job, because you get so overwhelmed by picking up other people's emotions. And it may not even be anything relative to you in the work situation, because I'm going to say just because this is so strong that you pick up, maybe a boss had a fight with a spouse and that energy came through and you felt it yourself and you took it on yourself. Though it may have had nothing to do with you, and then like something happened at work and it just compounds it and becomes so overwhelming. So I feel like this is part of what the changing jobs, changing companies is. You feel so much and at times too much. Just overwhelming. Okay. So this is also makes it why it's so important. One, for you to take care of yourself by hydrating really well. Because if you're dehydrated, you can get more easily depressed, you can get cranky, you can get exhausted, you can get tired. And to do things that help you relieve emotional and mental stress. And, it can be anything that you really enjoy, but with this strong moon here, and Jupiter is also rules overseas water in a sense, that going to bodies of water, the ocean, a lake, a river, go to a hot tub, have a bubble bath, those things are really important for you to help you, in a sense, kind of wash away other people's emotions that you take on. So there's empaths do things like they shower to wash away energy, emotions that they've taken on from other people. But just, meditating by a body of water or just soaking in a bubble bath to de-stress can really help. So, yeah. And I want to say, make sure you also nurture and mother and take care of yourself. And that has to be, in a sense, first and foremost, for you to truly help take care of others. For you to fully embody this strong moon, motherly, nurturing energy that you have. And because you're so sensitive, you have to take care of you first, or you will, in a sense, overwhelm yourself. Okay, let me take some water. Okay, just thinking if there's anything else I want to say here. I think that's good. I will also note, looking over at the Navamsha chart, that you also, it's interesting because your Navamsha chart, the house signs are the same, they often shifts, but you also have Jupiter exalted in Cancer. So Jupiter stays strong your whole life. And in a sense, it doesn't mean that that means you have to be overwhelmed by emotions your whole life, but through, taking care of yourself, of course, hydrate, but you can, Jupiter's good luck. You can bring in a lot of fortune to you through your own actions, as long as you don't allow yourself to be overwhelmed by emotions, basically. So it's actually should be, mostly will be quite fortunate. It's just dealing with the overwhelming influx of emotions that you may feel. Okay. Looking at the Navamsha for other things. Okay, all looks good. Okay, so that's your first house. All right, second house. Sorry, I just paused to see if there's anything else I wanted to say. No, let's move on. Okay, so your second house. Your second house is the sign of Leo. And second house is your gain. So it's kind of a money house. Gains, finances, it's your possessions. It's the house of what you have. I call it the house of stuff. It's also the house of what you value in life, both tangible and intangible. And it's also the house of self-worth. It is the sign of Leo, which is a very creative sign, and Leo is ruled by the sun. And you have the sun over here, conjoined your moon and Mercury in your 11th house. I just realized I'll have to backtrack on something, which I didn't mention. So I'm going to backtrack now. You have moon here in your 11th house. 11th house is a social house. It's friends and acquaintances, your network. With your exalted moon here ruling your ascendant, it is very easy, this kind of just reinforces what I said, very easy for you to take on the emotions of your friends, of everyone you're around. Yet you need that emotional connection to people. It's very important for you. But again, I want to stress, you need to be able to filter. You need to be able to not take on, like a sponge, everyone else's emotions. Okay. And then you have the sun conjoin the moon here. So it's like 4 degrees away, but you were basically born on a new moon. Which I don't see that as good or bad or anything, but just pointing that out, you're born on a new moon. And going back to the sun rules your second house. The sun, as you now know, is also in your 11th house, your social house. So concerning, I want to say this has to do more with the sense of self-worth. You could say self-esteem. Your sense of value in the world is very much gauged upon your emotional perceptions and what you pick up emotionally, empathically, you can even say intuitively, from people in your surroundings. So again, this is house of friends and acquaintances, so it's not necessarily people you're even close to. 11th house, I'll mention, is also the house of gains from your career and the network and connections you make from your work. So it's also co-workers, you could say, and friends you develop from that. But yeah, your sense of self-worth, one, because it's, the sun's conjoined the moon, it's a new moon. How do I want to phrase this? Yeah, how you're feeling will greatly affect your sense of self-worth in the world and in your personal life. If you're feeling great, your sense of self-worth shines because it's the sun. If you're soaking up a lot of negative energy from other people, it then affects you and brings down your sense of self-worth, even though there's really no real reason for you to feel that way. So again, I'm going to stress you need to filter things out. It's going to help you tremendously. You probably already know this. Excuse me. But it's really important because you can shine with the sun here and then. You can shine and wonderfully emotionally connect and communicate with other people. And it's, the sun and moon are here with Mercury, who's all about communication. Like, this is actually, you're an excellent communicator. You're an excellent connector person. You can networker. But a lot of it will depend on your emotional state. And that, more than anything else, is affected by other people's emotions. So if you're feeling down, it's going to dampen your sun and affect your ability to connect and communicate to other people, to socialize. So it's important to that filter, that emotional filter is really important. But if things are going well, you're in a good mood, you're able to filter out negative energies, people in bad moods. You're still loving and nurturing to them, but you're not soaking it up and feeling it yourself. Then you're an excellent communicator, great person to talk to, especially with Mercury here. Mercury's the chatting energy, talking about ideas, talk about anything, great communication. Moon with Mercury here is your good communicator in your social circles, and you shine. So you need to take care of, not soaking up everybody's emotions all the time. Okay. When it comes to money and finances and possessions, things you own, the stuff you have, your second house here, again, with the sun here in the 11th, and I mentioned also that the 11th house is also the gains from career. So 11th house is also your income. So you have a connection between, second and 11th, they're two money houses basically. You have the two money houses connected, and that's really good. So great potential to earn your income, bring in gains, have possessions. But again, your own emotional state, which is strongly can strongly be influenced by other people you're around, will affect that. So again, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling depressed, whether it's for your, because just you, or it's definitely mostly going to be because you're taking on emotional garbage basically, it's going to lower your sense of self-worth, and when you're feeling less self-worth, or you feel you don't deserve things, your ability to bring in gains, your ability to bring in income can decrease. And this may be when you're switching from job to job or company to company. So again, it's like you have to take care of yourself first, especially emotionally. But for you, body, mind, and soul, everyone, it's intertwined, but for you, it's very strong. And you really need to take care of all of that. And that in turn will increase the gains in your life, the resources you have, the possessions, the things you want, and your income and your social life. So it's all tightly, very tightly interwoven. Okay. Let's talk about a couple of transits here. So right now, the transits are not shown here, but right now, transiting Jupiter is here in Leo, and Jupiter's transiting Leo until the middle of August. So I believe it's, August 16th, 2016. I do have my ephemeris book here, so you may hear me flipping through to give you exact dates. So Jupiter has been in Leo since the middle of last July. But most of 2016, Jupiter has been retrograde. So middle of January until like May 9th or 10th, Jupiter was retrograde here in Leo, which is your second house. And now he's direct. So Jupiter's direct here in the second house until August 16th. So Jupiter in the second is an excellent placement because, again, Jupiter brings in expansion, good luck, auspiciousness. And now that he's moving forward, there's great potential to bring in more gains, resources, so it's not necessarily money, new possessions into your life. So things are going to be opening up in that area of your life. Especially anything to do with anything creative you do, if you have creative side projects or being creative even at work in a sense, that can bring in gains. Now it can bring in other types of gains, not through your own effort, which is actually mostly what the second house is about. So second house is also a house of inheritance. It could be gifts from family, especially whether it's money or an old couch, a piece of a family heirloom. It can occasionally, be winning something in the lottery, though I don't do lottery predictions, but Jupiter in the second house, transiting the second, is, if you wanted to buy a lottery ticket, this would be the good time to do it. But they're not always, planned or expected finances coming in. And Jupiter here is, again, he's good luck. He's called Santa Claus. So gifts can come in during this time. Okay. Since I'm on Jupiter, let me finish him up here. So transiting Jupiter's here till the middle of August. And then middle of August until middle of September 2017, Jupiter transits your third house. So let's talk about your third house here. So third house is this diamond shape or triangle shape here. Third house is the house of communication, everything to do with technology, internet, writing, excuse me, short distance travel, commuting, so commuting to work, or, short trips where you can drive to within a day. It's not overseas, that's ninth house. But for the most part, it's the house of communication. Your third house is the sixth sign of the zodiac, which is Virgo. And Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So Mercury is the natural ruler of third house, and Mercury rules Virgo, the third house, which reinforces what I said about Mercury here in your 11th house, your social house, is that you're a great communicator, a very good communicator. And you have Mercury, who rules this third house, in a trine position over here in the 11th. So you're a good talker. This is also a great indicator for writing. If you write, let me grab some water. Even if it's just writing for yourself, journaling, it could be blogging, it could be maybe you want to write a novel. With Mercury over here in your 11th house, your social house, being in a writing club, it could even be a book club because reading is part of communication. Like those type of things are great things for you to do with other people. But overall, great communicator. Now, Virgo is a very meticulous sign. There's sort of a joke among astrologers that the positive of Virgo is meticulousness and the negative of Virgo is meticulousness. So I would say you're probably a list maker. And this would be mostly communicating with yourself, obviously, but you make lists, you write things down, you're very organized. Like I would assume your email is well organized, it's not a mess. Yes, a bit meticulous in all your communications, technological areas of your life, which is actually really good because this is just such a natural placement for Mercury, and we've got his house, Virgo, here. Oh, and I should mention all the planets except the sun and moon rule 2 houses. So there's no Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in Vedic astrology, at least not traditionally. So you've probably noticed that already, but just to point that out. Okay, so then transit-wise, we have transiting Jupiter coming through here. Beginning again August 16th, 2016, and he's here through September 16th, 2017. When Jupiter's transiting through your third house for those 13 months, he's going to bring in, of course, expansion in communications for you. So expansion with technology, that can play out in many ways. It could be you buy a new computer and you expand your internet use, or you start writing more if you write, or you decide to write, or you realize communications, you're doing more with communications or more with technology at work. It can play out in many ways, but there will be an expansion, likely a very lucky one, in all the communication areas of your life. Now, Jupiter will have his drishtis. So when he's transiting your 3rd house, he will have a drishti on your 7th house of relationships, your 9th house of spirituality, and also on your 11th house. And I want to mention the drishti here because Mercury, which rules this house, is here. So you'll have transiting Jupiter in a trine aspect to the ruler of the house that transiting Jupiter will be in, which just reinforces like communicating more. And because Mercury's in your social house, socializing more, talking to more people. It could be talking on the phone, it could be Skype sessions, it could just be emails. You can socialize through the computer nowadays, but it can be in person as well. So more talking, more communicating, more with technology, and writing. If you like to write or you want to write, that's definitely in there for you as well. Okay, what else do I want to say there? I do want to backtrack a bit because I want to talk about one other transit going on in your 2nd house right now. So besides transiting Jupiter here, we have transiting Rahu and Ketu. So I don't know how much you know about Rahu and Ketu, but I'll give you the myth. Your natal Rahu is here in the 6th, and your natal Ketu is up here in the 12th, which I'll talk about. But in the Hindu mythology, the gods had put the demon snake named Vasuki in charge of churning the immortal nectar. So they wrapped him around the mountain, and they used him to churn the mountain, to churn the ocean, to make the Amrita. Now Vasuki decided one day to taste the immortal nectar when he thought nobody was looking. But he got caught. And the god Vishnu took his discus, threw it at Vasuki, and chopped off his head. But Vasuki had drunk the immortal nectar, so he did not die. So the gods took the head of Vasuki and named it Rahu, and then the body and tail and named it Ketu, and placed them in the heavens. So Rahu and Ketu, they're called planets, but they're really shadow planets. They're not physical bodies, but they're points on the moon's ecliptic. So the path of the moon, when it crosses the path of the sun, where eclipses occur. So Rahu and Ketu can cause eclipses, and in astrology, it can cause eclipses to any planet they're conjoined. Now, transiting Rahu is here in Leo, and I should mention Rahu and Ketu are always opposite each other. Transiting Rahu is here in Leo. Transiting Ketu is here in Aquarius. Now, this is on your 2nd and 8th house axis. So 2nd house, as a house of gains, money, finances, possessions, you have Rahu here. And Rahu represents material drive, ambition. He's the head. So a negative side, he can bring about illusion and addiction. But transiting here in the 2nd house with lucky Jupiter, who is now direct, is actually a really good thing. So Rahu here can bring in energy to bring in gains, more possessions, which for most people this sounds good, but if it's possessions you don't want, then you have to get rid of them. But overall, energetically, it feels good to have Rahu here in the 2nd house. Now, Rahu and Ketu are in these placements until July 5th, 2017. So for a little over another year. So even though Jupiter is going to move out in August, you still have the Rahu energy here to bring in great gains for you, to help bring in gains. And again, it's not necessarily gains from your career, in other ways, inheritance, winning something, whatever you can think of in other ways. Excuse me. Now, K2 is down here in your 8th house. 8th house is the house of death, change, transformation. It's also the house of the hidden, the occult, and metaphysical, and a house of research. And I know you've done hospice care, and to me, hospice care is 8th house because it's dealing with death and the transformations of life, the changes. You have K2 here, and K2 he represents spiritual seeking, So Rahu and Ketu are also very karmic, and I'll get to that in your natal position. It'll be more significant. But he does represent spiritual seeking. And when Ketu, as a transiting planet, Ketu also can bring about separation. He's very much like hermit energy, the spiritual seeker. And you have him transiting through your 8th house of the occult, esoteric, and metaphysical. So Ketu here is going to want you to sort of withdraw. One, withdraw deep within yourself for your inner transformative process. So you could say your spiritual growth, your self-reflection, exploring the depths of yourself. And at the same time, I feel like it's going to, actually what it feels like is that it's going to really get you to think on a deeper level. I mean, this is in play. This, Rahu and Ketu entered these signs at the beginning of the year, so December 31st or January 1st. So this has been going on, but it goes on for a little over another year until July 2017. Really contemplating life and death is what it feels like. Now, it may, through this process, it'll either deepen your hospice work if you wish to continue that, but it can separate you out from that as you gain a deeper depth, a more profound depth of this. But what I also see is possibly bringing in spiritual understanding into your work, which you probably already do, but it's going to transform, to that an even deeper level. Okay. And I'll also point out here that, if you go back to the dashas here, that your secondary influence, your antar dasha, is Ketu. So Ketu is highlighted, not only natal Ketu in your chart, but I find that the transits get highlighted a little bit or a lot of it. And the Ketu antar dasha began last August. And it goes, as you can see, until September 2016. So right now you're in the midst of overlap of the Ketu dasha, antar dasha, and Ketu in the 8th house. Now, 8th house is a dark house. Not evil, but it's the darker spirituality, the occult, the metaphysical. It's everything that is hidden and secret and buried, especially buried deep within. So this Ketu transit and being in the Ketu antar dasha at the same time, it can make you want to, again, withdraw and turn away and even go into yourself, which can sometimes look like depression, possibly even feel like depression, because again, you're strongly ruled by a very strong moon, an exalted moon. But if you look at astrology, because astrology is the study of time, that's how we tell time, by the placement of the sun and the moon and everything, that this is the time to go into that. You could call this even like going into a dark night of the soul, to achieve a deep level of spiritual revelation, of spiritual transformation. So if you need time alone to withdraw, if you're able to manage that, just to even spend like 1 day a week by yourself contemplating things, studying esoteric occult things. And this astrology reading falls into the 8th house. Don't be afraid to do it, because it's part of your process right now. Okay. Anything else I want to say on that? I think that's good for now. Yeah, I'll come back to the 8th house. Actually, let me talk about that now. Okay, so your 8th house is the 11th sign of the zodiac, which is the sign of Aquarius. And Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. So you're in your Saturn, I would say call it your Saturn Ketu dasha. We have transiting Ketu here in a sign ruled by Saturn. So you're in a deep transformative phase, is what I'm going to say. And not only because of the dasha influence on your 8th house, but because transiting Saturn is over here in the 8th sign of Scorpio. So Saturn himself represents transformation. The sign of Scorpio represents transformation, and the 8th house represents transformation. Now, as I mentioned, you did just recently have your Saturn return, which can be a challenging time. And I'll get into that when I talk about your 4th house. But right now, so beginning of November 2014 and until February 4th, 2017, so the next 7 months or so, Saturn is transiting through Scorpio. Now for everyone, because it's Saturn in Scorpio, it is triggering transformation. And then we have the dasha influence again on your 8th house of transformation. So there's like layers of Saturnian influence on you trying to trigger deep spiritual growth for you. I hope this is making sense. And because there's so much strong Saturn energy, and again, Saturn in your chart, Saturn over here in Libra is exalted. So Saturn is naturally very strong for you. That what I'm feeling is that this left ankle injury, because Saturn rules joints and bones and connective tissue, is in a sense a wake-up call to get you to put more attention on this inner transformative process. Now, Saturn, most people dread Saturn when you're talking astrology, but he's actually, he's the teacher of the teachers. He is our greatest teacher. He is Kronos. He's Father's Time. He's Grandpa who teaches lots of lessons, but he may tell a story that drags on and on and on and on until you get the message. And that's what Saturn requires, is patience. Patience, 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 because you can't speed up the process. You have to work with the process. You have to work with the deep transformative processes. You have to work with, so Saturn throws obstacles in the way. And that's why I feel this ankle is an obstacle he's thrown in your way. Not to get at you, not to be mean, not to hurt you, but to get you to stop trying to force things to happen when it's not the right thing or it's not the right time. That's what Saturn does. And that's why people dread Saturn, because they want things to, they want to do this, they want to do that, they want to get things going. Oh, why do they have to wait? This has to happen. And if Saturn energy is saying, no, you need to be patient, there's something much more important, such as your inner transformative process that you need to work on, he will throw those obstacles and hurdles in your way to keep you from doing something that's not the best for you. Even if your ego mind is like, no, I want to do this, I'm going to force it and make it happen, it never works out. You may be able to force something to happen, but there's all these problems in the way. So, areas in your life, and transiting Saturn right now is transiting through your 5th house, which is the house of creativity, children, but your past childbearing years. So it's also a house of romance, but most importantly, it's the house of doing what you love, doing what you're passionate about. And I think this speaks to your life purpose and career. I mean, you definitely have a nurturing quality, a motherly quality. So being a nurse, caring for others is a natural part of who you are. And I'll get more into career when I get to that house. But just the Saturn transit here in Scorpio, highlighted by being in your Saturn dasha, and 8th house being highlighted by K2 transit, being in your Saturn and K2 dasha, and again, Saturn rules your 8th house, that you are being, in a sense, you're being called to understand, to transform from within so that you can follow your passion, even if your passion is still nursing and hospice care. Because hospice falls under 8th house and Scorpio, the 8th sign. But I feel like it's transforming. It's transforming in some way. You're going to bring a spiritual aspect in, maybe bring in Reiki healing to help those passing on, or some sort of shamanic work. I mean, I'm not quite sure how it's going to play out, but I think it's going to deepen what you do, something you're more passionate about. And I feel as you allow yourself this transformative process, so for the next year or so, half year, you will get clear on that. But you need to not fight it. You need to allow yourself to retreat and be by yourself to understand this. And I do feel like the Saturn transit is also trying to wake up something deep inside of you that you had pushed away, left behind. This could go way back to childhood. That it's something that you're passionate about, that will bring out more creativity in what you do as well. Okay. Yes. Okay. So I'm actually going to put your video into 2 because my throat is really, really dry and I don't think I can talk nonstop for another hour without a break. So I'm going to do it in 2 parts. So this will be part 1, and we'll get more into career and your relationship in the second part. Okay, Merritt, I will be, well, as you will know, by the time you get this, I will be back with part 2 shortly.